Welcome to PaintED. My name is Torlando. I am your host. I am so glad to have you on the show today. I've got a great guest, Doug Myers from Pink Collars. And I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening in the world of PCA. We've got the virtual mini conference coming up. Rise above the rest. Data-driven decision marketing or data-driven decision making. Happening March 29th through April 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern. Each day, it's a 5-day event. There will be 4 tremendous workshops from Alan Langer, Annie Newton, Nicole Klein, and fan favorite Danny Kerr is going to be there from BTA. They're going to give us workshops on different aspects of our business, and it's all virtual, and it's all for PCA. It's exclusive for PCA members. Okay, great member benefit. And there's also going to be a panel discussion featuring a few really successful power couples in the industry that mixing business with pleasure is hard. Working with your spouse, working with your brother, working with your uncle, that could be really difficult, but a lot of people do it. And so that panel discussion is going to be really awesome, and I'm super excited for it. So again, the dates on that are March 29th through April 2nd. Rise above the rest, the PCA mini conference. It's free for members, and if you're not a member yet, boy, that's a reason to join. So you can learn more about that event at our website, pcapainted.org/virtual. So I want to ask you a question. What do you want your life to look like? I ask myself this question sometimes. What do I want my life to look like? Especially if I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall, if I feel like I'm stalling out. I have this little reality check with myself, and I say, what do I want my life to look like? We all have to ask that. And as business owners, you're in a very unique position in that you get to design that. You are 100% in control of designing what you want your life to look like. But so often we just kind of get in our own ways in that, right? As a business owner, we wear a lot of hats early on. We have to do everything. We're building our team. Maybe we have 10 guys, 20 guys. We got production managers. We got salespeople. We're building our team up. But there are things that are just still a stumbling block. And so often it's because we are creating a bottleneck in our business just because we're us. Just because we're people, and we're not perfect. We're not Superman. We're not Superwoman. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the time. And so we throw wrenches in the gears just because of who we are. And so how do we overcome that, right? Well, today I'm going to bring on Doug Myers with Pink Collars, and we're going to discuss this idea. How do we get out of our own way? How do we stop being the bottleneck in our company? I'm so glad to bring Doug on the show. Let me bring him on right now. Hey, Doug, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Orlando. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm feeling really good. It's really snowy where I'm at. It's at the time of this recording, there is just a huge snowstorm covering the entire country. It seems like Texas is out of power. Where are you guys based out of?
We are based out of Northern Virginia. We're just west of Washington, D.C., about 30 minutes. So that storm that you have is headed our way tomorrow. So okay. I know it's coming.
Okay, be prepared. Go get your bread and milk. That's what everybody does when the storm is coming.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to tackle this topic of being a bottleneck in your business and how to get out of your own way. Tell us from your perspective. Well, first, tell us a little bit about your company and how you kind of help people with this specific thing.
Yeah. Pink Collars is what I call a remote virtual office management solution. It's a fancy way of saying, we do an old job a new way. everybody wants that office manager role in their business. They want someone that they can count on, be the foundation, be able to handle communication inbound and outbound. And that becomes a bottleneck in the company right there itself. So what we do is we provide trained, qualified, vetted, high-end, what we call rock stars in our business, and match them one-on-one with field service companies that need this role. So we can really eliminate a lot of the problem when it comes to hiring and training and managing, and then getting a really high-level person to be able to handle that and hit the ground running for you. So that's what we do. We're a nationwide company. We're U.S.-based, and we like to provide jobs for folks to get to work from home, which is a real advantage, and match them up with clients that have reached that bottleneck in their business where they can't do it all themselves anymore.
That's right. And it's very doable. To the remote work situation is very doable now. I mean, out of necessity as a culture, we have figured this out. Okay, so this is really good. So I think that our audience is going to gain a lot of value from you, because this particular thing of having these built up administrative tasks, these customer service tasks on our plates, they're so difficult to hire for a lot of reasons. One, because it's maybe not within our current skill set or expertise on how to do. We're just kind of figuring it out as we go. We're figuring that piece out as we go. And the other thing is that it's not a profit generating role. It's pure overhead, and with a seasonal business, with profits going up and down, revenue going up and down, it's a little bit scary to take on that extra overhead in a pure admin role. And so by virtue of that, we kind of feel like we have to take it on, or we see, or maybe it's our spouse at home starts to take it on because we just can't afford the overhead. So like this is real, right? Like this, you probably.
It's absolutely real. I hear it every day, all day long.
Yeah. So how do we start to wrap our minds around this? And I guess let's start at the basic, at the beginning. How do we start to recognize that we're maybe the bottleneck?
Well, I always ask the question, if you're indispensable, if you think you're the only guy, then you're the problem. And your business will only go as fast as you can go. So just being able to recognize it, look in the mirror and saying, I want it to go faster, I need it to go faster, but I know if everything is flowing through me, that is key indicator one right there, that you are the bottleneck.
And so, okay, so you recognize that, and then what do you, like, why is that a problem? I mean, like we're, because I feel like a lot of people do feel like people aren't doing it as good as I can, and every time I try to hire this out, they're not doing it right. And I've tried outsourcing before, maybe I've tried hiring in-house. Why does it seem like the owner is able to do things better than anybody else that they try to hire?
Well, that's it's one of the excuses that I hear all the time. Okay. And there are three main excuses that I hear. I call one the decision maker excuse. Two, there's the quality control excuse. And three, there's the revenue excuse. So the decision maker excuse is much like you said. I'm the decision maker. I need everything to sort of go through me to make sure that, I know how everything's happening. And that can really slow things down. Sure, you need to get your hands dirty, but you need to learn how to delegate as many tasks as possible. I have a very good friend, business mentor, business coach. His name's Brandon Vaughn. He works in the washing industry, power washer, window washing, things like that. And he taught me years ago, I was in a video meeting with him, and he's like, Doug, look on my whiteboard right behind me. And he has three letters up there that say ADD. Okay. He's like, you know what ADD stands for? And I'm like, you got to tell me. He's like, I put that test to everything I do. I call it, if I can't automate it or delegate it, I need to delete it out of my business. And
Interesting.
I sort of lost a little bit of my mind right there, because it was a really good something to just sort of lay over every decision that I have to make in my business. And I hope that everyone hearing this can maybe take from that and learn as well. If I can't automate it or delegate it, I need to delete it.
Yeah, yeah. So so I like that, and I agree with it, because I typically say that. I will say that I have noticed that there are some owners that they automate and delegate everything, and then
Mm-hmm.
what happens is they get so bored with their business because there's nothing to do, and
Yeah,
they start to lose fulfillment. So I'll just add a personal caveat that, there's the things that you want to hold on to are the things that bring you energy and that you love. Always hold on to those things, but for everything else, absolutely, I agree with this. Automate,
absolutely.
delegate, and if you can't delete, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds really simple, but once you start digging into it and just pick one task, and lay that over top of it and say, what can I delegate? Is there someone else on my team that I can give this to, and expect the outcome to be adequate or equal to what I'm already doing?
Hmm. Hmm.
You
and
know?
and I think that's the big challenge here. And I mean, you touched on it before, like maybe there's a little bit of head trash that we have saying, oh well, nobody's gonna get it right. I tell this
Mhm.
story of this time where I had a guy, because I was a paint contractor for 17 years, and I tell the story of this time that I had a guy who messed up a caulking job, and it was really bad, and it was so bad that I actually had to let him go. And when I really analyzed what had happened there, I realized that it was completely my fault, because I didn't teach him how to caulk, which sounds so basic, but at the time, uh, I just had this head trash that said, "Oh, I nobody can caulk in my company like me."
Yeah,
Which sounds so silly, but there are things that people are holding on to right now that are equally as silly as,
yeah,
"Oh, I hold the golden caulking gun and nobody can caulk like me," right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I see a lot of business owners fail to make the transition from doer into a coach. I really, for whatever reason, that sticks in my mind, the whole coaching mentality. And being a business owner, an entrepreneur, that many people listening to this are, I am myself, I have to constantly be looking at what should I not be doing and what should I be coaching? And as you're bringing those people in and hiring new people and bringing more staff on, you constantly need to be reflecting as, how can I coach them up so I can let them go, launch them out into the world, and caulk or paint or whatever the thing is that they do equally or even better than me. So that's how I always approach um, looking at tasks, looking at skill sets that my people have, and how can we coach them up? How can I find the information that they need? Where are they struggling to be able to get them up to speed?
Right. And so if we don't get this automating and delegating thing right, like what's wrong with the status quo? I mean, yeah, I'm working really hard, I'm working my butt off, but the risk of
Mm.
bringing somebody in is pretty high. What do we have to lose if we stick with the status quo here?
One of the big words that I love to use is freedom. I think you lose freedom that you don't even know possibly exists. Um, I'd bet a big stack of cash that nobody likes working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Nobody likes answering calls after 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Nobody
Right.
likes sending out quotes and invoices and follow-ups and doing all of those types of things. I get calls all the time from people, and uniquely enough, I get a lot of calls from contractors' wives that work together in the business with them, and they're like, look, I'm frustrated. I can't do it anymore. I'm trying to raise my family.
Yeah.
My husband's gone. I've heard things like, he hasn't taken me on a date in 3 years. He never comes to our kids' soccer games. We never eat family dinner together. So
Yeah.
I would look at that freedom that you really want. And that's what we all started a business for, right? We don't want to work for anybody else. We want to work for ourselves. So how can we gain that freedom in doing what we do that makes money for us, but yet not have to be tied to it?
Absolutely. Let's like let's unpack this a little bit, because like what you
Sure.
just said, because I remember being at the Residential Forum, which is a conference that's hosted by it's called it's a PCA Residential Forum. Every year they have this conference called Advanced Shop Talk. It's a phenomenal conference if you're a residential contractor. And I remember one year they had a couple up talking about working together in business, and at one point they asked, the crowd, how many people worked with a spouse or a family member in their business, and it was well over half the crowd that raised their hands. And what we see, I think it's just so common, is the husband is a painter. he,
Mm-hmm.
he decides he's going to lay out his own shingle. He
Yeah.
starts doing work. It's going great. He's picking up. He's got to add on some crew, and now he doesn't have time to actually work on the business, and so he turns to a spouse. And sometimes it's the reverse, right? It's sometimes
Right.
the reverse. There are many amazing, wonderful female contractors out there. They're killing it out there. But we
Yeah.
see this very often where they turn to their spouse and say, "Honey, I need help."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But honey already has a big mental load that she's carrying. She's
Absolutely.
got she's
Absolutely.
already doing tons of stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're actually seeing the wives starting to call you because
Yeah.
maybe it's not fair to put this much work and effort
Yeah.
on a spouse, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And if you really think about it, the spouse, the wives have given you this blessing. Yeah, go for it. Go start your business. Go work for yourself. I'm going to support you. They're already like up to here in what they do every day,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, well, I want to follow my dream. I need you to help me do that. And they're up to here now, and they
Right.
just can't take it anymore. And, that's another one of those bottlenecks that we see often, because the spouse, the partner gets overwhelmed to a point where they can't do it anymore. Now, all of a sudden, the business hits neutral. They
Mm-hmm.
can't move forward. And the next natural thought becomes, okay, well, I've got to hire someone,
Right.
right?
Right.
That becomes another problem. I don't know if you're trying to hire right now, it's difficult. There's, big unemployment packages where people don't want to work. They want to stay at home. But finding a person that can be skilled, empathetic, understanding, good communication, that can really take that weight off of you,
Mm-hmm.
and not add to it, is critical, and it's hard to find, and that puts more pressure, another hat on that business owner's head that he has to wear. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, not only does my wife not want to work with me anymore, now I've got to go find someone to help me. I've got to take the time to make an ad, interview people, hire someone, train someone, manage someone, support someone on a daily basis, and that actually retracts the business, and it takes
Yeah.
them away from what they do and what they love to do and do best.
Okay. So I feel like you're starting to build a case here for outsourcing compared to hiring in house. Let's go ahead and explore that, right? Let's go ahead and talk about it, because I think that's the question here, right? It's
Sure.
okay, if I can't deal with this, and my wife can't deal with this, or my husband can't deal with this, then I have to hire somebody to do it. But I wasn't necessarily taking care of this very well on my own. I don't know if I have a good system for it. Uh, do I outsource it?
Yeah.
Make a case for it, Doug. Tell me why I should outsource this over trying to hire in house.
Well, it's not a hard case to make because a lot of times you've got to look at, I only know what I know. And partnering and pairing with um, one individual, let's say you find somebody in your local town. I'm going to hire them. I know them from, my church or my kid's school, or they're a friend of the family. I'm going to bring them in. That person is going to sit there and wait for you to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
They don't have that empirical knowledge of what your industry does, what customer service should sound like, maybe the CRM that you're operating in, sort of the nuts and bolts of the business customer service wise. A service, and there are lots of them out there, ours is one of them,
Mm-hmm.
where you're getting a trained, skilled individual that comes from the customer service world, that knows what to ask, how to sort of see around corners. We share a mutual friend we were talking about earlier,
Yeah, right.
Reber in Contractor Sales Academy. Part of that training that we've gone through, we actually teach our staff how to qualify leads, how to really listen for key indicators on the phone when you're speaking with a customer, finding out what's your budget look like for the job, who's the decision maker in this, how long have you been thinking about it? Because when you realize that you're talking to a homeowner, a customer, it's a very, for lack of a better word, it's very intimate that they're asking you to come into their home and take care of their property. So it's something very close to their heart. If you're tied up and frustrated and like, I've been working 14 hours today, I don't want to take another call, that homeowner can hear that on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to give that initial first impression with somebody really skilled that can answer the right questions, ask the right questions, give solutions to the problem, makes that customer so sticky to your business that they don't want to go anywhere else and look anywhere else. Yeah. They're tied to you because they were served.
So is this one of the first things you think needs to be delegated?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, absolutely. Because I look at the customer service as the very front end, or the top of the pipe, if you will. I always equate business to a pipe. If nothing goes in the top end, nothing comes out the bottom end. And if you're not fortifying the business from the very front end in capturing leads, doing good follow-ups, asking for reviews, really giving your customer that comfort level. When they call your business, they know that they're going to be taken care of. If you don't get that right, you're going to lose that customer for good. So capturing that lead, whether or not they become a customer right then, doesn't mean you can't remarket to them in the future as well. So I see that as critical, and I also see it as a role that can actually generate revenue for the business.
Okay, so talk about that. How does this role start to generate revenue? And I want to highlight. You mentioned that your company has gone through Reber's Contractor Sales Academy. So if our audience is familiar with his process, it's a lot of phone. It's a lot of delivering prices up front. There's like a lot. There's a lot of phone work with that.
Sure.
Which would be, obviously handled through a company like yours or another. So walk us through this process then.
Well, as many of your listeners probably know and have heard of, they call it the Shin-Fu process.
Mm-hmm.
And Shin-Fu is qualifying leads. Uh, the contractor can't be replaced. That one-on-one interaction is very important. But we feel like we can actually help generate revenue by reducing that time that he needs to spend in the field. He can actually see more people if he doesn't have to spend an hour with Mrs. Jones asking all of those qualifying questions that can be done on that first initial phone call into the business. Where, like I said, are you the decision maker? Do we need to get your husband or your wife involved or your partner involved? What's your budget look like? Do you have any pictures of this, the project that you have in mind? Have you picked paint colors yet?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Is it a specific finish that you're looking for on the wall? Getting all of that information built up front as sort of a game plan, and then being able to turn it over to the business owner, the contractor, and saying, okay, here's what we know about Mrs. Jones. She has a $20,000 budget. Here's what she's looking to be done. Here's her timeline. All of that. We can even set up the appointment for him to go out and see them in person and handle the scheduling aspect of it for him as well.
Got it. And so having a person, whether it's in-house or whether it's outsourced, having somebody to take that stuff off your plate is really the first step in removing yourself as the bottleneck, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let me follow this up,
Mhm.
because I imagine, because again, I want to really be thinking on behalf of the listeners here, and I want to protect their overhead,
Mhm.
because you do something like this too soon, and all of a sudden, the profits just start getting squeezed. At what point do you see people really actually needing this? I mean, because I feel like there's a stage of business where you kind of should just white knuckle through this, piece and do
Mhm.
it yourself. Maybe delegate to different people on your team, or just hold on to it yourself. But then there is a point where it's like, okay, we've got some room in our overhead to deal with this. Like,
Mhm.
that's the smart place to do it. And I want to be sure that I'm not telling my
Yeah.
listeners to start just spending money, because
No, 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 no. I
right.
get it. We all have to be fiscally responsible, right?
Yeah.
And there is a number that I put to it. The data, the research, the just experience that we've done, and I call it the ceiling. It's the first ceiling that they hit in the business, and typically that's about 500,000 in gross annual revenue.
Okay.
That's the first ceiling you get to. You can bootstrap your way to that point. It's duct tape and chicken wire.
Yeah.
You can put it together. But once you hit that threshold, we find that there's good revenue coming into the business. You have some sort of lead generation marketing platform in place that's bringing new clients to you. You've got good staff in place as well that can handle the volume.
Mhm.
Now, what's next? And breaking through that $500,000 in gross annual revenue is usually the first ceiling that you got to break through. And that's where a service like ours can really help you step on the gas and get to the next ceiling, which
Yeah.
is typically a million two, is that next one you hit where it's like, okay, I've got to have somebody really dedicated, that's with me full time, and
Yeah.
can really do a lot more for me.
And that's probably where you would want to have that in-house person,
Yeah.
because you need that dedication. But and that seemed like we've some people have called that space kind of that 500, usually maybe even 800 to
Mhm.
1.2. They call that Death Valley, where there's just so much happening that
Yeah.
there's so much volume, and so many customers going on, but you don't really have the overhead to bring somebody in to help you, and the nuts and bolts of the machine are just like flying out of the just they're you're leaving a trail of machine parts down the street, and so maybe outsourcing some of these things is a good idea in this space. Is this what you're saying?
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic idea. And we've had clients get to this point where, okay, we face the next sort of ceiling. Okay, we've hit the seventh figure. And for conversation's sake, we'll call our person Mary. Mary is sort of maxed out. What do we do next? We can actually add another person in. And because Mary's built that sort of game plan with them, the systems and the processes from the 500 to a million,
Right.
Plugging a new person in and saying, okay, now we're just going to split roles a little bit. And Mary, you're going to handle all the incoming into the business. And new person, Jennifer, you're going to handle follow-up calls and scheduling and things like that. So it allows a business owner to start to build new lanes to their highway.
Okay.
So the service you can just keep adding on to. Again, finding a new person to plug into that role that doesn't know what you've been doing all along can actually slow the machine down a little bit.
Right. Okay, so walk me through what a good, smooth customer service process looks like in your mind.
Oh, in my mind, I think it's conversation. It really is. And I heard a great example or an analogy is the customer interaction with a business should be like a tennis match. It should just volley back and forth. Question to the customer, answer comes back. Another question, answer comes back. And when you can uncover, there's a great quote I have. If you can't uncover what the customer's problem is, you're never going to sell them the solution. And really being able to uncover that right from the beginning is key. You also have to keep in mind that we are in a society, I call it the one-click society. We're all one click away from finding the answer we want. And if we don't get that, when we pick up the phone and call a company or fill out a website form or place an email or a chat on a website, and if we don't get that right away, we're just going in another direction. I read a great quote just last night that if you answer a website lead, if you have a contact form on your website or a chat bot or something like that, if you answer it within the first 5 minutes, you are 100 times more likely to book a meeting with that customer.
Wow.
100 times.
Yeah.
Not 10, not 20, 100 times more likely.
Yeah, that's some intense responsiveness that it seems like you have to have. So it begins with facilitating consistent conversation, the volleying back and forth. I like that. Which again is something that I think an owner is going to have a hard time doing. I mean, you got to eat sometime, you got to go to bed sometime, and one of the stats that I look at in my line of work is that over 40% of home service calls come after business hours, right, which is really significant. I mean, if you're thinking about in terms of like pure marketing dollar that you're you're driving these leads to your business, and almost half of them are coming after business hours when you're at home, and you need to respond within within 5 minutes or 30 seconds. When do you stop? When do you turn off? So
it's hard. It really is hard. Now, I've seen great examples from some of our clients. We've actually learned from some of our clients where they'll put a distinct message on their after hours answering service that says, thank you for calling ABC Contracting. We are not in the office right now. We're at home spending time with our family. But if you leave your name, number, and message with us, we will be happy to give you a call back first thing tomorrow morning when we reach the office. That's a very personal kind of way and a very simple way of letting people know that we've heard you. We want to talk to you, but we're doing something important in our lives as well. We're prioritizing. Yeah.
Okay, so that first piece is the conversation. What is the second piece of a really smooth customer service experience?
Giving the customer, the potential customer, the comfort that you're there to solve their problem. Okay, and solving their problem can be listening, can be getting them on a schedule if they're, need to be seen in person. If there's a service or a product that can be quoted over the phone, and the interaction can be done right there, handling that right as it happens, and then eventually being able to follow the job the entire way through the process and doing follow-ups and invoicing and asking for reviews and really keeping or sort of putting a bow on the end of the interaction with that customer, because we have seen just consistent, a consistent building of a book of business by just touching people, by continuing the relationship and letting people know that we're here to serve you, and helping business owners do that in being better communicators, better follow-ups, is just money in the bank.
Yeah. And so I imagine that at each step of the growth process where you have this system that you're doing, that you kind of need to adapt it a little bit as you go. How do you recommend kind of continually honing in and continually improving on this process?
Well, it's a learning process the entire way, for sure. We use a lot of good technology to help us build that encyclopedia of knowledge, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a free tool out there called Trello. Trello is, I call it an electronic bulletin board.
Mm-hmm.
If you want information about, and let me stop and say this, most business owners keep it all up here.
Yeah.
It's all up here. I know what I do. You got to get it out of here and onto a platform where someone else can come in and learn what you do. We lovingly call it doing the brain dump. You got to do the brain dump. You got to get everything out, whether it's who you are, what you do, where you go, equipment you use. We use Trello as that sort of dashboard of information for the business. And that's a great way to continue that learning process. As we learn something, we make a note of it on Trello. We have frequently asked questions section.
Yeah.
I laugh. We work with a landscaping company, and he has a card on his Trello board that explains what happens if you get a new puppy and he pees on your grass and he burns a brown spot in your grass. How do I fix that?
Yeah,
and
right.
He's been able to answer that in a way, and we have it on a card. So when his CSR answers the phone and gets that question, she could constantly reference the Trello board to be able to do that. So using technology to be able to navigate your way through all of those questions and processes and systems is a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. That's an interesting use of Trello. Because usually it's like more of a project management, like, this step, this step, this step, but you're kind of using it as a repository of how your business functions. That's an interesting use of it. So, all right. So if we get this right, the process, because it seems like there's a lot of like, okay, I just got to figure out what I'm not getting done on my own. I need to figure out what I need to delegate. I need to codify that in some way, systematize it in some way, whether I'm getting help from an outsourced service or hiring in-house. We have to codify it, and then we can move on to the other stages of growth. Am I getting this right? Am I getting this process right?
You are, absolutely. And I think one of the advantages that we bring to the table is, again, like I said, you may not know what you don't know, and that's okay. We have a pool of knowledge, experience from all different types of industries. Everybody runs their business a little bit different, and that's okay. So whether you're a painting contractor or a landscape contractor or a general contractor or an HVAC company, there are customer service points that you can always learn from. So we as an organization, it's fun as an owner to watch my teams communicate with each other on ways that they do things better for their clients. So in a lot of cases, we end up asking questions of the owner that they may not even have thought of yet. How do you do this? And it's fun to watch those meetings happen, and they're like, oh, I've never thought about that, or somebody's never asked me that question. And being able to walk them through in how to build a process because they've never done it before can be absolute gold and freedom for them in the end.
Yeah. And I think that as you do that, like, you definitely need to create that playbook, which I think is, in this instance, is where the Trello is coming in. But there are other ways to do that. There are
Sure.
documents, you can make websites, there's definitely ways to systematize and organize this information. But the bottom line is, like, once you figure out the problem and then address the solution, you've got to have that place where your team can go to figure that over and over and over again. So once we get this all figured out, like, what does, I asked this question at the beginning of the show, like, what do we want our lives to look like? Like, what does our life look like if we if we get out of our own way?
Our life looks like freedom. And that's the best way I can describe it. I'll tell a story. It's a little bit of a heart-wrenching story, but it really put it into perspective for me. A couple years ago, one of our clients, my phone rings it was about 10 o'clock at night. I have his number saved in my phone, obviously. As a friend of ours, I see his number call 10 o'clock. Why is he calling? I answer the phone. I'm like, hey, Mike, what's going on? He's like, Doug, he said, I'm sorry to call you this late. He said, we just found out that my wife's mother is being put into hospice care, and we need to get to see her as soon as possible. We're leaving in a couple hours. Don't know when I'll be back. Run my business. And he hung up the phone. Yeah. I didn't get to say, God bless you. We'll do what we do. What do we do? I didn't get to say any of that. He hung up the phone and said, run my business. With the tools, the systems, knowing the key players in place, we get on board next morning, 8 a.m., place the call, start directing traffic. That's a little bit, another sort of fun role that I kind of call, we're like air traffic controllers in a way, and coordinated his team to be able to keep the business running. He was gone for 4 weeks. Never picked up a phone, never answered an email, never sent a text message. And he called me after they got home, and he said, you gave us the most wonderful 4 weeks that we would have never had because we weren't tied to the business. Right. I could trust you because we did this exercise together, and it gave us the freedom to be able to go do what we needed to do. So that was a tragic case. I've had people go on vacations for a month as well and been like, I'm out. You can do it. You know what to do. So we get really excited when we can partner with people to really be able to help give them the freedom that they're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. I mean, I've personally been there where I've had to take extensive time off just because of a personal tragedy, and I think that's, the optimistic entrepreneur wants to think that, oh, we want freedom in our business so that we can go sip lemonade in Bermuda, but that doesn't always happen. A lot of times it's the tragedies that are the things that wipe you out for a month or 2 months. And having those systems in place, having the people in place, and I think that's the big key, because if you don't have, I mean, it's one thing to have a system.
Yeah.
It's another thing to have people who can actually run the system, and they're two legs of a body. If you have the system but you don't have the people to run it, then all you have are words sitting on a shelf somewhere, collecting dust or collecting digital dust. But if you have people but they don't have a system, then they don't really know what to do. And so having those two things work together is the only way that you can get this freedom.
Mhm. I look at a business. It's an elementary way of saying it, but it's like a three-legged stool that you
Mhm.
sit on. Okay, there's three legs to that stool. There's the customer service leg, the sales leg, the operations leg. And if one of those three legs isn't doing its job, the stool falls over, you fall over. So
Yeah.
you have to support all three equally. And what happens, unfortunately, a lot of times is customer service is sort of the byproduct of a growing business.
Hmm.
It's I've gotten my name out there. I've done a good job. I've hired people. All of a sudden my phones are ringing. I don't want to do that because I like being out in the field doing the thing,
Right.
and really supporting it and looking at it as a necessary driver of the business is crucial. So I always challenge people. You have to look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Doug, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I am I'm convinced that this is a viable path. Okay, I don't think it's the only path. I think that
No,
you can white knuckle it and you can hire in house, but I do think that it is really important to consider your options in terms of do I outsource at this specific stage? And what I appreciate is that you understand that
mm-hmm,
it's really about this specific stage of
mm-hmm,
the wheels are starting to fall off. Maybe we're starting to get a couple 4-star, maybe we got a 1-star review in there, and our customer service asks, it's just because it's too much to handle.
yeah,
Let a company that does this all the time take the reins for a minute,
yeah,
codify your system, and then maybe hand it off at the next stage.
yeah.
That I really respect that. I really actually think that that's very wise and a very, very viable path. Um, tell the audience if they want to know a little bit more about Pink Collars. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and where to find you to connect with you.
Sure. You can find us on our website, www.pinkcollars, that's CALLERS.com. You'll find all of our social media links there. There is a button on the main page that says Let's Talk. Click that button. You can come directly to me. I am very transparent about what we do and how we can help. I even publish my cell phone number out there. So I like talking to people. I like helping solve the problems. If we can be a solution right now, great. If we can be a solution 5 years from now, that's great. Let's help you get to that point where you need an option like ours. Yeah, much like you said, you can white knuckle it up to a certain point, but there will come a sort of a tipping point where you need help. And I just look at us as an alternative way. I call it doing an old job a new way. If you
Mhm.
want turnkey customer service, someone that you can count on, someone that, and here's another thing I didn't mention earlier, hiring that in-house. How many owners out there have had much like you're going through right now? There's too much snow on the ground. I can't drive. My car won't start, or my kids are sick, or I have this emergency. And you're left with that, I hired somebody and now who's answering my phones today?
Right.
Having that consistent coverage, that service that you can count on that always has your back, is certainly how we can help. So reach out to me. I love to have these conversations. Our website form will get a little bit of information about your business so we can get to know you and answer all of the questions, and really be able to help you move this thing forward.
Cool. And you have a downloadable for them, right?
We do. We do. I have a sample Trello board. We mentioned that I'll send out. It's a template that you can start plugging your information in. So even if you have somebody right now in the office, let them use it. I think it's a great, again, playbook is the best way I can
Yeah.
describe it. Is here's how we run our business. So yeah, we can send that out. And you can start using Trello to be able to be the playbook for your business.
Very cool. Very cool. So go to pinkcollars.com/PaintED to download that Trello board. He'll send it to you via email. Awesome. Well, Doug, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to send you backstage and we can catch up just a little bit afterwards as I close out the show. Thank you for being on.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, there you have it, folks. Doug Myers from Pink Collars. What a great guy, great conversation that we had there. Um, Delegating and automating things in your company, it has to be part of the process. It has to be part of the plan. You will get burnout if you don't do it. But I also want to just add in this caveat that really you want to hold on to the things that you love and enjoy, because if you delegate everything, you're gonna lose fulfillment in your business. To be honest, you're gonna not know what to do with yourself. Especially the older you get, you're gonna, your kids are gonna leave the house, and then you're gonna, have nothing but golf, and golf is great, but you know goodness, too much of it is, it's like a lot of golf. So you want to have something in your business that you love, and you want to be able to delegate and automate the things that you don't. I really appreciate this conversation that we had with Doug from pinkcollars.com. uh, let's close out the show. A couple things that I want to invite you to: the Facebook group, the PaintED group on Facebook. This is a free group, you guys. This is a free group. Some of America's best contractors are on there at all stages of the game. There are people who have been there, done that. They have great sized companies. They're extremely successful, and there are people that are just starting out, just figuring things out. And the sharing and the caring in that group is tremendous. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource to help you grow your business. Another announcement: we are launching PCA Overdrive. Now, PCA Overdrive, this thing is cool. The staff at PCA, we produce tons of content, tons of video content, webinars, shows like this, in the field shows, trade best practice, all types of video content is available to you at PCA Overdrive. And so if you go to pcapainted.org and you click on watch, you'll be able to see this wonderful new site that has all, it's kind of like a Netflix experience. It's kind of like Netflix, but for paint contractors, which is like wild that we could do this kind of thing. It's just $4.99 a month, you guys. Just $4.99 a month. Your first 30 days is free. And if you are a member of the PCA, guess what? It's included in your membership. It's freaking awesome. So go to pcapainted.org to learn more about Overdrive. My name is Torlando. I am your host. I appreciate the time that you've spent with me. And this has been PaintED.